essentially like the most comprehensive account of what survivors experienced in residential school was told through the Indian Residential School Settlement through a process called the IAP, Independent Assessment Process. And it was there over 26,000 survivors participated in these adjudicated hearings and testified in graphic detail about the abuse that they experienced in residential schools. All of those accounts are private and confidential, and they're going to be destroyed in less than 4 years. And I don't think a lot of people know that that's what's happening with those IAP records. And so what we did with our podcast, Surviving St. Michael's, was that we knew that we couldn't access those documents that were, hundreds of survivors from St. Michael's would have participated in. And in those hearings, they talk about the kinds of abuse they endured, but they also named alleged abusers. And so the government and the churches were all notified about every single time someone was accused of abuse. And so they know and understand like the rates of abuse at every single school across the country. And none of that information is public. But it also seems like critically important to know the truth, critically important to know, what were the rates of abuse at a single school and how does that impact what's happening in that community today? Surviving St. Michael's is a really great example because so many of the survivors from St. Michael's were actually from James Smith, where that terrible tragedy occurred just, a year and a half ago. And I think that, we didn't make the connection at the time, but I absolutely think that there's so many things that we can know and understand about residential schools that continue to have really important public policy impacts in communities right now. And so what we did with Surviving St. Michael's was that because we couldn't access those private, confidential, statements from survivors through the IAP, we gathered all of the pre-settlement lawsuits that survivors filed that led to the residential school settlement. And those are all public documents, but they were kind of just languishing in courthouses in Regina, Saskatoon, Prince Albert, Melfort. And so we did the work as part of our podcast to kind of gather all of those documents and compile them into a data project so that we got to have a sense of just how much abuse occurred at this one school over many decades. And it's not a complete accounting. It never will be a complete accounting because so many survivors, passed away even before there was a residential school settlement or decided not to participate in that process. But it's the best account that we could possibly have now of what happened, not just at St. Michael's, but every single residential school across the country. And I think what we did for that one school should happen on a broader scale, that we should know the truth about every single school across the country, as much of it as we possibly can. And so I want to continue that work in some way. So find a way to help save the documents, to help save the truth, not just for present day, but for future generations. I think that, so many people are really eager to talk about reconciliation and how can we reconcile. And what I've been learning through my work over the last few years is how little of the truth that we actually know and understand. And there's so much work that has to be done to not only expose the truth, but to preserve it. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. And that's a project that I want to take on in the next, I don't know how long it's going to take, but next few years.